In this video, we'll learn about short-term goals and long-term goals. So what are the differences between both short-term and long-term goals? Yes, they are different in the length of time the actions take to accomplish them, but did you know that we also differentiate whether our short or long-term goals are stepping stone goals? For us to understand further, regardless of the amount of time used, the stepping stones are significant and yet constructive goals which enable us to achieve the long-term goals. We should first proceed to comprehend the characteristics of each type of goals before thinking of how setting such goals will help us. Now let's talk about long-term goals. Long-term goals usually take longer than 1 month to achieve as they need time and planning. These long-term goals that we set might sound bizarre or even unrealistic when we set them, but as we set a particular timeline to it, they won't be impossible. As there are many factors and steps taken to achieve these goals, they usually take up to a year or longer to achieve. Several examples of long-term goals include: become an orthopedic surgeon, 10 years; produce movies, 1 year or more; retire at 55, years of hard work and planning. As we can understand from these examples, these goals can never be overnight success, even with planned effort and resources. Therefore, we can conclude that long-term goals are definitely made up of short-term goals, which are stepping stones to the main goals. To define our stepping stone goals, we must first recognize the traits of short-term goals. So let's talk about short-term goals. Short-term goals might not take longer than a year to achieve, depending on the nature of the goal itself. These goals are often easier to complete than the long-term goals. Examples of short-term goals: finish revision of a chapter in 2 days, planning our personal budget, making a list of items for shopping. More often than not, short-term goals enable us to achieve the bigger long-term goals. As such, they are called the stepping stone goals or enabling goals. Stepping stone goals enable us to create progress towards a greater, often long-term goal. Without such stepping stones, it would be impossible to achieve the greater long-term goal. Hence, when setting long-term goals, we set the timeline based on the amount of time, resources, and our effort to accomplish these stepping stone goals. Upon achieving all these stepping stones and subsequently the long-term goal, we can look forward to achieving our lifetime goals like retiring at 55 with enough money and time to travel the world. As illustrated in the diagram, we can conclude that each stepping stone goal will lead us to the long-term goal, and every long-term goal can subsequently guide us to our lifetime goals. Now, what about goal length? The goal length for us to achieve our goals mainly depends on ourselves, despite experts' suggestions on the timeline we should follow. All these usually are down to our own resources and willpower to succeed. We have to instill in ourselves the mindset that it is possible for us to defy limits like time. Definitely along our progress, we will lose motivation and next productivity. Therefore, we start questioning if the length of time we set to finish our stepping stone goals is suitable for ourselves. To avoid such adversity in the future, we have to keep in mind the scale of the long-term goal. Which goals should be prioritized before others, how evident the progress is after completing each stepping stone, and if the target is clear enough for us to maintain our motivations. Ask yourself, is the scale of the long-term goal too immense for each stepping stone goal? Which goal should be accomplished before the next? Will the progress be evident enough to motivate us to run towards the finish line? Is the finish line getting clearer and more realistic as we progressed? With these factors taken into consideration, you will not lose your focus, passion, and confidence in your abilities to complete each goal. At this point, you can also develop systems to ensure each stepping stone goal is achieved according to the timeline and also to track your progress to your long-term goal.